Archangel, high-ranking angels that are given leadership and authority. The Bible only names one directly, Michael, who is called the Archangel in Jude and described in Daniel as a chief prince who defends Israel. In Revelation, Michael leads heaven's armies in battle against Satan and his angels, showing his role as God's warrior and protector of his people. Gabriel, though never titled Archangel in Scripture, is often viewed as one because of his importance as a messenger. He explained visions to Daniel, announced the birth of John the Baptist to Zechariah, and told Mary she would bear Jesus. Whenever Gabriel appears, it is to deliver news of God's plan at pivotal moments. Other traditions name other archangels, but the Bible stays focused on these two. Together, Michael and Gabriel show us the dual roles of archangels, one leading in spiritual warfare, the other carrying God's announcements of salvation. Guardian angels. The Bible never uses the exact phrase, guardian angel, but it strongly suggests that angels watch over God's people. In Matthew, Jesus warns not to despise little ones because their angels always see the face of his Father, a hint that believers are represented before God by protecting angels. In Acts, when Peter escaped prison and arrived at a house, the disciples thought it must be his angel, showing that early Christians believed in personal angelic guardians. When these angels appear, they usually take on human form. Daniel described one who looked like a man standing before him, and the women at Jesus' tomb saw angels in shining white clothes. These appearances could be so ordinary that strangers were mistaken for travelers, or so radiant that people trembled in fear. Whether assigned individually or sent as needed, their purpose is clear. God uses his angels to protect and deliver his people. Seraphim. These are the fiery six-winged angels Isaiah saw around God's throne. They are not messengers to people, but worshipers closest to God himself. With two wings they cover their faces, with two they cover their feet, and with two they fly, showing reverence even in heaven's highest ranks. Their role is to continually declare God's holiness, filling the throne room with praise that shakes its very foundations. In Isaiah's vision, one seraph touched a burning coal to his lips, cleansing him from sin so he could speak for God. That moment shows what they do: exalt God's glory and carry out his commands of purification. Far from the baby-like cherubs of art, seraphim are blazing beings of fire and awe. They remind us that the heart of heaven is worship, and that anyone who stands before God must first be made clean. Cherubim. Most people picture cherubs as chubby baby angels from Renaissance art, but the Bible's description is far different. The real cherubim are mighty, fearsome guardians of God's holiness. In Genesis, God placed them at the entrance of Eden with a flaming sword to block the way to the tree of life. Later, golden cherubim were carved above the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing God's throne resting between the cherubim. Ezekiel's visions describe them in detail. Each had 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle, along with 4 wings and hands beneath them. All are covered in eyes. Their appearance was bright like fire and lightning, moving swiftly wherever the Spirit directed. Revelation echoes this image, showing similar beings leading worship before God's throne. Some texts even hint that Satan was once an anointed cherub before his fall. Cherubim stand as powerful throne bearers and guardians, unlike the harmless childlike figures of popular imagination. Living creatures. A vision in Revelation describes 4 living creatures surrounding God's throne. The living creatures resemble cherubim from Ezekiel and seraphim from Isaiah, blending features of both. Each one looks different. One like a lion, one like an ox, one with a human face, and one like a flying eagle. They have 6 wings that are covered in eyes and never rest from honoring God's holiness. These beings are not passive. When the Lamb opens the seals of the scroll, each creature calls out a horseman, releasing judgment on the earth. Later, one of them hands over the bowls of God's wrath to the angels who pour them out. They are both worshipers and agents of divine justice, reminding us that all creation is represented before God, and even in heaven, praise and judgment go hand in hand. Ministering spirits. Hebrews calls angels ministering spirits, sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. Unlike the high-ranking archangels, these angels work quietly, carrying out God's assignments to help his people. They are spirit beings, usually unseen, but at times they appear in human form when their mission requires it. Scripture shows them at work in many ways. An angel appeared to Paul during a storm, assuring him that everyone on board would survive. In the Old Testament, an angel brought food to Elijah in the wilderness, and one shut the mouths of lions to protect Daniel. Even Jesus, after his temptation in the desert, was strengthened by ministering angels. Heavenly host. The term describes the vast armies of angels under God's command. Scripture shows they are too many to count. Daniel saw 10,000 times 10,000 around God's throne, and John in Revelation heard their voices filling heaven. At Jesus' birth, a single angel announced the good news to the shepherds. Then the sky filled with a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God together. This host is not only a choir, but also an army. Elisha's servant once saw hills covered with horses and chariots of fire, angels prepared for battle. Jesus himself said he could call on more than 12 legions of angels if needed. In Revelation, the armies of heaven follow Christ when he returns to judge the nations. They serve as his choir in worship and his soldiers in war. Angel of the Lord. This is a mysterious figure depicted in the Old Testament. Unlike other angels, he speaks and acts as if he is God himself. When he appeared to Hagar in the wilderness, she called him the God who sees me. At the burning bush, the angel of the Lord spoke to Moses and declared, "I am the God of your father." To Abraham, he stopped the sacrifice of Isaac, and to Gideon and Samson's parents, his presence was so overwhelming that they feared they had seen God and would die. Because of this, many believe the angel of the Lord was not a created angel, but a temporary appearance of God, possibly the pre-incarnate Christ. After Jesus came in the flesh, the title disappears, replaced by ordinary angels of the Lord. This figure shows God's personal involvement, stepping in directly at crucial moments in history. Watchers. In Daniel's vision, a watcher came down from heaven to announce God's judgment on King Nebuchadnezzar. This watcher proclaimed the king would lose his sanity until he acknowledged God's rule, showing their authority to deliver God's verdicts over rulers. The word means one who stays awake and alert, pointing to angels assigned to observe and carry out God's decrees. Unlike cherubim or seraphim, Scripture gives little detail about their form. Daniel simply describes the watcher as a holy figure descending from heaven, likely appearing in human shape as angels often do. In other passages, angels in man-like form spoke with Daniel, clothed in bright garments or shining with glory. So the watcher may have looked similar, human in appearance but radiant and commanding. Later, Jewish tradition added stories of faithful and fallen watchers, but Daniel's account emphasizes their true role, alert servants of God who watch and act on his authority. Angels appearing in human form. One of the most surprising traits of angels is their ability to appear as ordinary people. Hebrews warns that some have entertained angels without knowing it, pointing back to stories like Abraham hosting 3 visitors who looked like travelers, 2 of whom were angels. Lot also welcomed these same figures into his home in Sodom, not realizing their heavenly nature until they struck the mob with blindness. Angels often appeared as men clothed in white. At Jesus' tomb, the women saw 2 men in dazzling apparel, and at his ascension, 2 men in white stood by the disciples with a message of hope. Even Gabriel, when he came to Daniel, is described as the man Gabriel. This ability to take on human form shows how angels can move among us unnoticed. Sometimes radiant, sometimes ordinary, they reveal that God's messengers can step into human life in ways both hidden and direct. Angels of judgment. Throughout the Bible, certain angels appear as agents of God's wrath. In Exodus, one struck down Egypt's firstborn during the final plague. In 2 Kings, a single angel wiped out 185,000 Assyrian soldiers overnight, showing how terrifyingly powerful these beings can be when sent to execute judgment. Their appearance is rarely described, but they often arrive suddenly, armed with overwhelming authority. Sometimes they are seen with drawn swords, like the angel who confronted Balaam, or the one who stood over Jerusalem with a sword stretched out to bring destruction until God relented. In Revelation, angels pour out bowls of wrath and sound trumpets to command fire and blood upon the earth. Unlike guardian or ministering angels, their role is not to protect, but to carry out justice. Fallen angels. Not all angels stayed loyal to God. Scripture speaks of those who rebelled, following Satan in his pride. Revelation describes the dragon sweeping a third of the stars from heaven, often understood as angels joining his revolt. Once cast out, they became demons, unclean spirits working against God's purposes. The Bible gives little detail about their appearance. When described, they usually take the form of spirits rather than visible beings, sometimes possessing people and causing torment. In visions, they can appear monstrous or like stars fallen from the sky. Paul calls them rulers and powers of darkness, emphasizing their hidden but real influence. Jude and 2 Peter mention some already confined, bound in gloomy chains until judgment. Though their forms are vague, their actions make their nature clear. They are angels stripped of glory, now defined by corruption, and their fate is certain, eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. And that wraps up every type of angel described in the Bible, from the mighty archangels to the mysterious watchers. If this gave you a clearer picture of the unseen world, give it a like, subscribe for more deep dives into Scripture, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's coming next.